Okay, so real quick, let's listen to the first landing on the moon, July 20th, 1969. Well, maybe it's not the first, but let's listen to the moon landing, July 20th, 1969. Let's listen to them as he's talking back and forth to Houston as he's landing on the moon.
Hello, Eagle, Houston. We're standing by, over. Eagle, Houston, we see you on the steerable, over.
Roger, Eagle, done dot.
Roger, how does it look?
The Eagle has wings.
Roger.
The Eagle has wings. On its own now, but with Columbia near at hand, it coasted around to the backside of the moon, and there, while out of direct communication with the Earth, it fired its engine to slow its descent to a touchdown on the near side of the moon. Collins in Columbia continued in orbit, awaiting their return.
Okay, all flight controllers, go for landing. Retro.
Go.
Fido.
Go.
Guidance.
Go.
Control.
Go.
Telcom.
Go.
GNC.
Go.
Ecom.
Go.
Surgeon.
Go.
Capcom, we're go for landing.
Altitude 4,200. Houston, you're go for landing, over.
Roger, understand. Go for landing. 3,000 feet.
You're looking great.
How you doing, Control?
We look good here, fine.
How about you, Telcom?
Go.
Guidance, you happy?
Go.
Fido.
Go. 2,000 feet. 2,000 feet. Into the ag. 47 degrees.
Roger.
37 degrees.
Still looking very good. Your go.
Copy. Alarm. 1201. 1201.
Roger, 1201 alarm.
1201 alarm.
Same type, we're go, flight.
Okay, we're go.
We're go. Same type. We're go.
Altitude 1,600.
Eagle looking great. Roger, 1202. We copy it.
35 degrees. 750. Coming down to 23. 540 feet down at 15. 1050 feet down at 4. Altitude, velocity, light. 3.5 down. 220 feet. 11 forward, coming down nicely. 200 feet. 4.5 down. 5.5 down. 100 feet. 3.5 down. 9 forward. 875 feet. Guys looking good. Down a half. 6 forward.
60 seconds.
Lights on. Forward. Forward. 40 feet down, 2.5. Picking up some dust. Straight shadow. 4 forward, drifting to the right a little.
30 seconds.
Forward, drift. Contact light. Okay, engine stop.
We copy you down, Eagle.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
And look at that, huh? Not only did it land perfectly upright, even though apparently the moon's moving and the spaceship's moving, but it somehow set itself down. But the one little thing NASA can't really explain is how come we couldn't hear the astronaut because he was on top of a rocket engine? They forgot to include the rocket engine in their little video cast. Do you see what I'm saying? Can anybody explain that? Well, no? Okay, great. Let's move on. Everybody loves to roll out people like Michio Kaku or Neil deGrasse Tyson whenever there's any type of doubt about the moon landing, the flags, what the flags were made out of, the crater that's not there from the lander that should surely be there, because this is representative. See these large nozzles? That's a rocket engine. It's not a jet engine. It's not an engine like in a car. It's not an engine like in a boat. It's a rocket engine. And this is what a rocket looks like, going up or landing, no matter what. But this is what they present us with. And it looks like nothing. It looks exactly like what it is. It's a sound stage. It's an absolute sound stage. And yes, it's a great, big, giant conspiracy, without a doubt. If a rocket just landed there, there would be a dune all the way around it, a crater, we'd call it. But I digress for now. Let's listen to Michio Kaku talk about going to the moon over and over and over. But first, Let's listen to a scientist and what they actually really say to people in their own mission.
NASA admitted that it had lost the original footage of man's first steps on the moon.
YouTube and watch A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. It contains newly discovered evidence, which is part of the missing tapes, of outtakes from the first mission to the moon, of them falsifying a shot of being halfway to the moon. We found never-before-seen footage of them faking part of the photography, which is in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, which has been licensed 5 times and can only now be viewed on YouTube.
Here they discuss the fact that they have turned out the lights and have blocked out sunlight from entering the spacecraft through the other windows, as to not cause any reflected light to fall onto the spacecraft's wall in the foreground.
Okay, very good. Well, we shut out the sun coming in some of the other windows into the spacecraft, so it's looking through the number 1 window, and there isn't any reflected light.
The reason this was done is so that the truth of the matter would not be revealed. It is this. Though the federal government would have you believe that this is a view of Earth from a distance out of the spacecraft's window as it nears the moon, it is not. What they have ingeniously done is placed the camera at the back of the spacecraft and centered the lens on a circular window in the foreground, outside of which it is completely filled with the Earth in low orbit. The circumference of the window then appears to be the diameter of the Earth at a distance. As they perfected the shot, a crescent-shaped piece of black material was inset slightly into the window to create the illusion of the Earth's terminator line dividing night and day. It is uncannily convincing. During this segment, intended to be edited and played back later for the worldwide television audience, dated July 18th, 1969, Neil Armstrong condemns himself as he states that he is 130,000 miles out.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Finally, the iris is opened up and you can see the real location of the camera and the very bright and near Earth out the window. Here is the slate for the 19th of July, and the same shot of trickery on the 19th of July, and then the 20th, and the same misleading shot on the 20th. Later that evening, they were said to be walking on the moon. How can this be when they were in Earth orbit only 9 hours earlier, and the moon is some 3 days' journey away?
So I took a year and I traveled across the country, and folks, I've actually posted it on YouTube. It's called Did We Go? And the challenges, Geraldo, everywhere I went, it was just amazing. Moon rocks falling in Antarctica, Neil Armstrong's silence. But I was the first to report, and you played the clip earlier tonight, that all the science data, the telemetry data was missing. Now, Geraldo, for NASA to come out and say that all the tapes were erased, I mean, it's incredible. Geraldo, this isn't just one tape. This is rooms of tape labeled Apollo 11 moon landing. Someone had to physically go and erase it. It's very challenging to try to prove we landed on the moon, and it shouldn't be challenging. That should be there. There should be plenty of evidence.
Well, you know, immediately after the war, the U.S. and the Allies created the Nuremberg trials, at which time we brought the Nazis to justice for their crimes against humanity. But 1,500 of the top Nazis never went to trial. They were smuggled into the United States by the U.S. military under a program called Operation Paperclip, smuggled in through Boston and West Palm Beach, Florida. And Wernher von Braun and his rocket team, 100 of them, along with 100 copies of the V-2 rocket, were sent to Huntsville, Alabama, where von Braun became the first director of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. What's interesting is the other 1,400 Nazis. Who were they? Well, some of them were brought to the United States to work for the CIA. Others were brought to the United States to do the LSD drug experiments and the MK Ultra mind experiments during the 1960s, where people were jumping out of windows. Some of the Nazi scientists that in Germany had been taking Jews and putting them in freezing temperatures to see how the body would react to that were sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio and were put in charge of the U.S. military flight medicine program. And so when you take 1,500 of the top Nazi scientists and essentially seed the military-industrial complex, the question I have is, do they bring with them an ideological contamination?